They, or rather Alan, got away with it once before, but would the traitors get away with their second murder in plain sight? A dinner party was the scene, the weapon was words in a toast, the one wielding the weapon was Alan. I mean, do any of you really think Kat could get away with saying those words? Would Alan get away with it? He was kind of fumbling his way through. It was clever to implement the idea that Stephen had once mentioned the saying, something Kat had suggested to Alan before the dinner party, especially if you know it's a line from William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, which I did have to remind myself of which play it was actually from. It seemed like a little send up to the task where they had to guess the combination of deaths in Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet. The words were said, but we didn't know who it was said to until breakfast. Alan was sitting next to Celia and opposite Joe Marler. We knew Alan couldn't pick Joe, though he would have probably wanted to if Joe hadn't won the shield. I know it's been clearly documented about his sweating, but what has been noticeable for Joe was Alan's habit of deflecting, or most of the time laughing off, when certain comments were made. Joe's insightfulness is probably the biggest reason that Alan wants Joe gone. The moment came when we found out who was the victim of the second murder in plain sight. It was inevitable, but it doesn't mean I wasn't surprised. Celia was one of the players I wanted to be made a traitor. She became my absolute favourite in the game, from an entertainment point of view, and that she's just brilliant. I was the most upset for a murder than I've ever been this season. From her fart to her screamo wailing, Celia gave us laughs and good insight. If I was to name a list of players that didn't disappoint in the game, Celia would be on that list. As per usual, Claudia gave the faithfuls a clue that the murder was in plain sight. Sometimes I go back and forth as to whether I think it's a good idea to let them know when it happens. Like in Celia's case, when the player doesn't return to find out later that day, it can make it obvious as to who might have done the act, or it can make the faithfuls overthink every possible way it could have been done. The overthinking was definitely happening this time. We got a creepy mission just in time for Halloween. Creepy in the sense that there were headless versions of all the players. Some of those heads looked scary, not just because it was just the head on display, but because some of them really didn't look like them. The players needed to get a creepy head each onto one of the bodies, where £2,000 would be added for each head. They just had to navigate themselves through the laser beams like a scene from a heist movie. In fact, when I usually see laser beams in a mission, it's usually to steal something from a plinth. This was not the ideal mission for Joe, but probably more suited for Nick. Claudia really got into it, helping and cheering them through the lasers. I always laugh when she breaks from a serious persona to get the players going. Despite a couple of failed attempts, they all managed to get a head across, which meant £14,000 was added to the prize fund, taking the current total to £67,500.
Thank you were amazing. That was better than my wedding day.
From the conversations, I was getting the feeling that Kate, David, and to a lesser extent Alan were the ones who could possibly be banished. This roundtable carried more weight than any other so far. It was the last time the banished player would reveal their role in the game. Nick has been holding on to his suspicions of Kat for a few episodes, only telling Joe Marler about this, so I was surprised that Nick chose this roundtable to bring it up. Maybe the play was to put it out there so David could start thinking of that possibility and also catch the traitors unaware. During the roundtable, I thought it would be between David and Kate for banishment, and for a moment it was between David and Kate in the conversations. Joe's face kept making me laugh during it. Any thoughts of Alan getting a vote went out the window, and I'm surprised no one brought up anything about him. Many times Kate was adamant she would be murdered at some point, but if she was paying attention, she would have figured out why she was kept in all this time, for this exact moment. Kate rode the waves of suspicion since day one, but her time was finally up as she was banished with 3 votes to David's 2. Nick ended up using his vote for Kat. With Kate's banishment, it means the remaining faithfuls will have no idea if they actually manage to get all the traitors out until the end of the game. This sets things up for a nerve-wracking final episode with 3 faithfuls and 2 traitors. Something that I privately laughed at as we saw where the drumming was coming from was just a second before Kat had said the following:
"Oh my gosh!"
I had said the same thing. It has absolutely no bearing on anything, so I'm not sure why I even mentioned it. It just made me chuckle. With 5 of them left, Claudia announced there was no murder. She just wanted them to do one last wee thing before the night ended. Look at each other while saying that they are a faithful. Alan couldn't even say he was a faithful with a straight face, laughing before he was able to finish the statement. That must be one of the biggest giveaways ever. I mean, Alan has had 1 or 2 big giveaways that he's a traitor, and there's been a lack of faithfuls jumping on those clues. With Nick's argument for Kat being a traitor, it has now convinced Joe that Alan and Kat are the traitors. With Nick and Joe still in the game, the faithfuls have a very serious chance of winning, something that didn't look like a possibility as we watched them episode after episode banish faithfuls. The situation is eerily similar to another edition where there was the same makeup of players of 3 faithfuls and 2 traitors. As those camps had 2 distinct pairings, there was one player that was essentially the swing vote between the opposing camps. David could end up being that swing vote. There might still be an element of suspicion towards David, but if Joe and Nick have a snippet of trust in David, then that can prove to be a way for the faithfuls to win. Joe and Nick have to convince David to vote with them, but that might not necessarily be an easy thing to achieve. David has not been on the ball. He was the only one that didn't vote for Jonathan, and he once voted for Nick. There's a possibility David could go back in that direction, and that's something the traitors can jump on. Though it could end up looking weird if Alan and Kat vote the same way, but it might be the only way they can survive together. Otherwise, one might need to sacrifice the other to win, though they have pinky sweared. I'm not sure Nick and Joe will end the game with either Alan or Kat still in that point, but we shall see who will come out victorious and win the prize pot for their charity.